As the years passed, I always retained that basic passion and appreciation for the ever-developing knowledge of science. There were certainly those in my hometown who saw a godless, evil half-truth in the declarations of Darwin and his intellectual descendants. But for me, my friends and my family, evolution, like the rest of science, was just another fascinating and non-controversial fact of life. My relationship with religion, however, has always been more complex. Raised in an intellectually adventurous family, I never thought of myself as a religious person. Yes, I went to church more Sundays than not. Presbyterian was our family denomination. But church was simply a respected and honored part of the multi-layered social fabric of life in a small town, not something to be taken too seriously, and certainly not something to be fanatical about. Such things were better left to the Baptists or the overly religious folk down at the Church of Christ. By my late teenage years, however, my outlook had begun to shift. Fate seemed to instill in my young heart a passion for discovering a deeper meaning to life, and a yearning for spiritual fulfillment began to well up in my consciousness. By the end of my time at university, spirituality, and more specifically Eastern philosophy and meditation, had become a focal point of my life. Finally, at the age of 22, in 1990, only 2 weeks after I graduated early from Oklahoma University, I left the world I knew behind, my honors degree, my fraternity brothers, plans for law school, and boarded a plane for the East to dedicate myself to the pursuit of wisdom, truth, and spiritual knowledge. A decade later, I found myself in a unique position. Editor at one of the most influential and progressive spiritual and philosophical magazines in America, EnlightenNext, formerly What is Enlightenment? And my early passion for science began to play a key role in my new career. In fact, the relationship between science and spirit became one of the most important areas of inquiry for a magazine dedicated to defining a post-traditional spiritual and philosophical worldview suited to a rational age. In the course of my work for EnlightenNext, I was privileged to be able to meet and interview some of the most impressive spiritual leaders and brilliant scientific pioneers alive today. I had the chance to examine where they stood on many of the most important questions confronting human culture. And I have learned that evolution is not only a line in the sand between science and faith. It is also, I have been surprised to find, a bridge that connects them. The journey that led to the creation of this book was what author Stephen Johnson calls a slow hunch, a gradual epiphany that coalesced around a number of important insights and encounters. As I interviewed many individuals who were breaking new ground in science, spirituality, philosophy, psychology, and even traditional religion, I noticed that a common theme was emerging: evolution. They were informed and inspired by science's revelation of our biological and cosmic history, and in some cases explicitly championing the notion of evolution as a new way of making meaning out of life in the 21st century. In the hands of some, this evolutionary inspiration leaned towards secularism and humanism, and in the hands of others, it leaned toward pantheism or even theism. But they all shared a common evolutionary context for interpreting their fields. We were witnessing, I eventually concluded, the birth of an authentic new spiritual and philosophical worldview. This new worldview was science-friendly and placed questions of human purpose and meaning fully in the context of an evolutionary cosmos. It has been slowly emerging in the culture over the last 2 centuries, but has picked up steam in the last 2 decades. To be sure, there is still little cultural mind space in mainstream America for the emergence of evolutionarily inspired forms of meaning and purpose. Let's be honest.